Do not send your kids to school with COVID, said education bungler Nadhim Zahawi. Well, that'd be a great idea if schools were still handing out test packs and your government of sociopathic incompetents weren't winding up for free testers coming Thursday, so we actually could tell if they had COVID. Schools have always been the biggest driver of the pandemic. It has been repeated ad infinitum for more than 2 years, 3 years now, because where you have the biggest concentration of bodies in every community, you'll see the biggest amount of spread. It's logic. It's pretty simple logic. Denying said logic on the basis that kids don't get as ill and focusing on other age groups completely ignored the contagion aspect entirely, as children readily took the virus home to other family members in vulnerable age groups and with various health issues, leaving them more susceptible to severe illness. Repeatedly, you were told to sort schools out, fit air filtration, sort out ventilation, allow vulnerable families to have their kids taught from home, masks, hygiene. And this was drummed home repeatedly by the likes of Safe Ed for All, by Independent Sage, and by other genuine public interest groups. And I say genuine because there were some vile idiots speaking to the contrary and handing the likes of Zahawi and the Tories the guise of taking expert advice when really nothing of the sort was happening and nothing proactive was being done. Oh, but the vaccines would fix everything, they told us, didn't they? As fantastic a development as the vaccines have been, as many lives have been saved thanks to them, the kids were once again left out for too long. We've seen variant after variant come through, even more contagious, though fortunately less deadly for most. And I say for most. Many of my regular audience know my wife almost died of Omicron at the beginning of February. We're a vulnerable family. And frankly, like many, we've been cast to the walls by the government in terms of how they are dealing with this situation, which hasn't just suddenly got worse, but has been gradually getting that way for weeks now. We've got 3 kids currently in school. One is doing A-levels, another GCSEs this year. It's a massive year for them, education-wise. But we had to sit down, effectively, right after my youngest found out he'd been sat in a lesson next to a kid who had tested positive, yet had still been sent to school, and decide what we were going to do. So much for the £37 billion test and trace. Hey, in a million years, we're never going to see the value for money of that Tory scam. But we decided as a family, we had to have a conversation about pulling the kids out and decided that aside from exams, we really didn't have any choice. The school couldn't authorize the absence, but they were not inclined to go down the road of prosecution, and we're lucky in that regard. Not every school thinks like that. And we took the decision to do this a few weeks ago now, and the situation at our local school, it's only got worse. Last Friday, the whole of Year 9 were taught remotely. They were sent home. They didn't have enough staff to cover lessons for the whole school any longer. 35 teachers are off with COVID. Something like 20% of the staff, and doing the responsible thing by not going in. What a pity some parents haven't been thinking likewise. But from this week, many will be sending their kids in with no way of knowing if they have COVID or not. Today, the whole of Year 8 have been told to stay at home. Tomorrow, it's Year 10. Then it's Year 7 on Wednesday. This is not effective teaching. It is not giving these kids a good education. But that is not the school's fault when abject stupidity in the form of government diktat imposed on them means their hands have been tied and they have to cope as best they can. I dare say many other families have similar stories they could tell right now. This is just mine. COVID cases in Cornwall are now the highest they've ever been. Where I live, 2% of people currently have COVID, according to the latest figures, which might not sound like much, but that's almost 3 times the national average right now. And it is the highest they've ever been, don't forget. This virus, thanks to the vaccines, may not be as deadly as it once was for most, but it is still highly contagious and you can still get ill, vaccine or not. And then there's the whole long COVID aspect of it too. Vaccines hedge the odds in your favor of not getting it, or if you do get it, not as badly, but they are not a guarantee. And in the school environment with so many people around, with some certainly positive for it, with the heightened exposure that so many people in one place brings, those vaccines are doing some heavy lifting. The more kids are exposed, the more the risk of some developing more serious illness takes hold. And lo and behold, child admissions to hospital have been rising. It might be less deadly now, but nobody wants to see their kid in a hospital bed. Both the Tories and the brill-creamed idiot Starmer said free testing cannot go on forever. Well, here's a newsflash for you guys. How much is ditching all COVID restrictions costing us now? Kids ill, spreading it to adults, adults ill, taking sick days, though many are not. The cost of living hurting everyone so badly right now, and only getting worse, that people will work through it, spreading it even more. That's just the financial cost, though. Hospitals under pressure after 12 years of the Tories selling it off bit by bit means we're even less prepared. Did you know that NHS England have got rid of more than 7,500 beds during the pandemic? Over a year, that's more than 2.5 million bed spaces. How is that even remotely sensible? Even during this greatest health crisis of our lifetimes, they haven't stopped hacking up the health service. But of course, they're going to blame COVID for the state it's in. Everything we're living through is the result of 12 years of Tory mismanagement. Make no mistake about that. And sadly, without any opposition anymore, as the Starmeroids just support them. Free testing has to stay. It can stay and it should stay. It is misleading the public to say this isn't the case, but hey, since when do politicians tell the truth, especially these days? Support for families affected to stay home is needed again, and an increase to incomes through benefit rises or other meaningful measures to help people meet the cost of living, else they won't be able to stay home. They won't be able to afford to. Nadhim Zahawi says he's setting out measures later this week, but his focus will be on schools and young people with disabilities or special educational needs. My fear is the schools will be told to send kids home without supporting the parents to be able to care for them at home, which will make the pandemic another cost of living pressure on parents. As for disabled or SEND kids, perhaps they'd be permitted to be taught from home, but just them? Hardly fixing the problem of contagion in schools, is it? Sticking plaster solution. This virus is still changing. We don't know the long-term effects with certainty. We don't know enough, frankly, to have treated it as flippantly as Johnson and his gang of grey matter deficient gin-soaked amateurs have treated it. We've watched this government repeatedly fail to take the right decisions for years now. So forgive me if I think they'll fail to again now. All they've done is prove that ignoring COVID is not the same as being able to live with it.